Hey, all you cool cats and kittens. We're here today and we'll talk about a special topic, something that matters to pretty much everyone. Everyone as a kid, right? So, do you remember a little bit about being a kid for a moment, right? Like, I want you to imagine, right? And we're talking about a kid, right? We're talking about the days. Ooh, probably should have my pen on. Um, Days where you have a little juice box, right? And you come home from school. Maybe there's some cookies or something like that, right? And the days where you're just a young kid and you're smiling, right? Things like that, right? And the thing is, right, when you're, a kid, right, sometimes you have these evil thoughts that go pew, 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 right? And what those evil thoughts are, right, is that you know that that little cookie right there is inside a larger cookie. I guess this is an urn, but we'll call this a cookie jar just for our purposes, right? So inside, we know, right, there are more cookies. And your guardian, parent guardian, whoever is probably like, hey, I know you've been a good kid. Here's a cookie, but like that's the only cookie today, right? And sometimes what you do as a little kid, right, is that sometimes you obey. And sometimes, right, you have a new thought, right? This little wisp of a thought, of an idea, and perhaps leads to inspiration. In this inspiration, you think, I could have more cookies. All I have to do, this takes 2 steps, right? Or a couple of steps. One, decide you want a cookie. That's the first thing, right? Step 2, decide you want one now, or perhaps later, if you're going to try to, maybe in the evening or something like that. Step 3, decide to break a rule. In this case, the parent guardian. To take the cookie even though you're not supposed to. Then step 4, take cookie. Step 5, eat the cookie. And step 6, await consequences. And so, depending on what those consequences are, it can be positive. Maybe nothing happens to you, and you can take it as another interpretation of like, hey, I'll keep doing this, right? I didn't get caught the first time. I pulled a fast one, a sneaky one, on my parents or guardians, and I'm just good with it, right? Or perhaps you were caught, and then a punishment came on, or maybe you kept doing it over and over again. You have this repeated behavior, right? Now, I'm not a parent, and I haven't been, but I have heard about stuff from parents for sure. I have also, been a dog and cat, like supervisor, aunt, uncle kind of thing, right? And I know that in those situations, right, as a parent, right, you are often left with something, right? There's this little decision tree, right? If we know that our, cared for one, the decision tree goes in 2 ways. One, we could ignore it. Maybe it's amusing that someone actually didn't think it's cute, like, because we were kids too, and like, aw, whatever, right? The other part we know, right, is that this person, depending on how they did it, right, disobeyed. You sort of like a command or rule that you try to set, and maybe you have like a good reason as to why that's in place, right? You have, so you have to do something about that, right? You could, warn them, something like that. But depending on who you are as a parent, right, you could also lead to a punishment. You decide to punish, right? And so what we'll end up talking a little bit about today is, a little bit about punishment, what happens in these situations, and why do we end up punishing, right? So that's sort of like the key focuses that we're going in is why do we punish, right? And what is the goal of punishment. So with this little introduction, right, we'll